Prepare to be astonished. These incredible videos capture creatures once thought lost to the ages, roaming our planet once more. From majestic predators to elusive birds, these rare glimpses into the past will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about extinction.
We always do, we have the megatherium. This animal is also known as the giant ground sloth, and they were one of the largest terrestrial animals that ever lived on this planet. They measured in at about 20 feet in length, but they were a slow-moving herbivore, so animals didn't really fear this creature. Early humans in South America hunted this massive creature, and they hunted it to its extinction 10,000 years ago. Or did they? In the deep jungle of South America, there are so many tales about terrifying creatures who stands at 10 feet tall. They have enormous backward-facing claws and thick brown fur. All of these characteristics are consistent with the megatherium's description, so maybe these aren't just stories. Next up, number 9, we have the mastodon. These hairy creatures are prehistoric relatives of the modern elephant. Mastodons have tusks, floppy ears, and a long nose, which is very similar to the elephant. Mastodons appeared on Earth about 27 million to about 30 million years ago, primarily in North and Central America. They typically stayed in the woodlands areas or sometimes around valleys and swamps. They apparently went extinct about 10,000 years ago, and most of the theories say that they went extinct because a lot of the scientists believe that the Earth warmed up too quickly from the Ice Age for the mastodon to adapt to, or that humans hunted them to extinction. So although they went extinct so long ago, a man named David Ingram described seeing creatures twice the size of a horse, hairy, and in the shape of an elephant. He accurately described what a mastodon would look like, and he said he saw them while he was traveling to the United States. There are even other people claiming to have spotted these creatures in modern times. Next up, number 8, we have the Japanese wolf. Japan used to have 2 species of wolf that used to live on islands. Biologists consider the Japanese wolf to be extinct. However, there are a ton of rumors circulating of people seeing them in the wild regions of Japan. These 2 wolf species became extinct in the late 1800s and the early 1900s due to rabies, loss of habitat, and hunting by humans. Despite their extinction, a Japanese wolf was sighted in 1910, and then in the 1930s, and then again in the 1950s. If that wasn't enough to convince you that these creatures are still alive today, there have been a ton of sightings in the 1900s. Skeptics believe the humans are mistaking a hybrid wolf dog for the Japanese wolf. That's definitely a possibility, but what if the Japanese wolf was still alive today? Pouncing in at number 7, we have the Javan tiger. They are a relatively small tiger that is as tall as a Great Dane. On the island of Java in Indonesia, this was the home of the Javan tiger, but as humans occupied more and more of the island, the Javan tiger was forced to move to the uninhabitable parts of the island. They were hunted by the humans so they could make more room for farming, and unfortunately by the time the government stepped in to preserve their species, the tiger was already too far gone. However, many locals have spotted Javan tiger claw marks and footprints, and they could still be alive because they are excellent at hiding and avoiding humans. Also in 1995, a Javan forester discovered a large group of these tigers still living on the island. These sightings continued into the early 2000s, and people are still finding evidence that the species still exists today. Swimming into our number 6 spot on our list, we're talking about the plesiosaurus. This is apparently an extinct marine reptile who lived approximately 135 years ago in the Jurassic period. They have long necks, thin bodies, wide flippers, and small heads. They have very sharp teeth and incredibly strong jaws, so they're able to feed on any fish that came in their path. Creatures matching this description have been spotted all over the world in lakes and in oceans. A lot of people believe that this animal exists, and people are just calling it the Loch Ness Monster. It is actually possible that these animals survived and they're just living in the depths of the ocean where humans are unable to explore. If this plesiosaurus still exists today, that would also explain why people have reported seeing sea dragons from around the world.
The animals on this list are gone, but not forgotten. At least not by conservationists. I had no idea some of these things existed myself, but sometimes what we think is gone isn't gone for good. I'm your host James, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 extinct creatures from ancient history scientists are attempting to bring back to life. And we're kicking off the list with aurochs. In the ancient days, there was a huge cattle species called the aurochs. They roamed around Eurasia to North Africa, but as humans came into the picture, they started disappearing. By Roman times, only the European aurochs were left, and they eventually bit the dust in 1627, gone forever. Then came the 1930s, and a couple of folks named Heinz and Lutz Heck thought they could play Mother Nature and possibly bring the aurochs back. They ended up getting something close-ish called Heck cattle. Jump to today, though, there are a few groups, the Tauros program, the Taurus project, and the Urus project, all trying to revive the aurochs. The first two are using selective breeding, but the Urus project, on the other hand, is going high-tech, using gene editing in the hopes of resurrecting the species. And at number 9 on our list is the quagga. The quagga were a subspecies of zebra on the southern tip of Africa. They were hunted to extinction, finally dying out in 1883. Now, let's jump to 1980. Some clever minds set out to bring the species back. Scientists delved into the DNA, and this was when it was first discovered that the quagga were actually a subspecies of the plains. That was the green light they needed, and in 1987 they launched the quagga project in South Africa. They chose 9 zebras, ones that shared traits with the quagga, and it brought them to a special breeding camp. They didn't stop there. More zebras were selected, each for their quagga-like qualities, and brought into the program. As the years passed, many baby zebras were born, and something amazing happened. They got results. 6 of these zebras turned out to be incredibly close to the original quagga. They weren't quite there yet, but they were similar, and they earned their own special title, Rao quaggas. Next up, we have the thylacine, aka the Tasmanian tiger. Now, this critter was like a mix of a wolf and a kangaroo with like a striped pattern going on. They look really cool. They were native to Tasmania, an island state of Australia, and they were the largest known carnivorous marsupials of modern times. Sadly though, humans weren't too friendly to them, and they went extinct in the 20th century. Fast forward to 2017, and scientists were trying to make up for humanity's mistakes. They managed to pull off something pretty amazing. They decoded the full nuclear genome of the thylacine. Andrew J. Pask from the University of Melbourne said the next move would be to create a fully functioning thylacine genome. It's going to take some serious time and research, but scientists are saying they might be able to pull it off and bring the thylacine back from the dead by 2027. It really helps with the species that they were around not too long ago. I think the last one died in like, I don't know, 1930 something, if I'm correct. Number 7 though, we have the woolly rhinoceros. As you could probably imagine, the woolly rhinoceros resembled modern rhinoceroses, but with fur. These were primarily found in the Mammoth Steppe, a cold and dry grassland ecosystem stretched across northern Eurasia and North America during the Ice Age. They became extinct around 10,000 years ago. As the Earth warmed at the ends of the last Ice Age, the Mammoth Steppe began to disappear, leading to a decline in the rhinoceros's food sources. Early humans also hunted these animals for their meat, their bones, and their hides. In recent years, advances in genetic engineering and cloning technologies have led to the possibility of bringing the woolly rhinoceros back. Scientists have been exploring the idea of using genetic material from preserved specimens to recreate them. One potential method for bringing back the woolly rhinoceros involves extracting DNA from well-preserved specimens, like a carcass found in permafrost, for example. Scientists could then sequence the genome of the woolly rhinoceros and compare it to the genomes of its closest living relatives, of course your standard rhinoceros, and to then identify the specific genetic differences and go from there. Next on the list we have moas. Moas were large flightless birds native to New Zealand. They belonged to the ratite group, which includes modern birds like ostriches and emus, kiwis. Some stood as tall as 12 feet, making them the largest birds on Earth at the time. But the arrival of humans in New Zealand marked the beginning of the end for these creatures. Due to the moa's lack of any natural predators, they were very easy prey. The population dwindled rapidly, and by the end of the 15th century, moas had vanished from New Zealand. And fast forward to modern times, thanks to advanced DNA extraction techniques, scientists have managed to obtain genetic material from moa remains, particularly ancient eggshells. And this allows scientists to study the moa genome and potentially resurrect them. Some scientists have contemplated the possibility of resurrecting these birds through a process called de-extinction. This involves using the preserved DNA to modify the genetic material of closely related birds, like in this case an emu and an ostrich, and create a creature that genetically at least would resemble the long-lost creature.
The Tasmanian tiger leaps onto this list at number 5. This species is also known as a thylacine, and they were a timid and a nocturnal creature who was considered to be a major pest and a dangerous threat to livestock. They look similar to a medium or large dog, except they had a stiff tail and an abnormal pouch, kind of like a kangaroo. The government set up a bounty system between 1888 and 1909 in order to get rid of these species. So people went all over Australia killing the Tasmanian tiger, and they officially went extinct in 1936. Or did they? Since its extinction, there have been many sightings of the Tasmanian tiger in Tasmania and Australia. It has been spotted so many times that a lot of people really believe that the Tasmanian tiger still exists today. Here's a clip that was taken in 1973 proving that these animals might still be alive. Take a look at this. Marching in at number 4, the woolly mammoth. This would be amazing to see this alive today. These creatures were closely related to the Asian elephants. Woolly mammoths look a lot like them except for a couple major differences. They were covered with a thick coat of brown hair to keep them warm in the frigid weather. Even though the woolly mammoth went extinct around 10,000 years ago, we have a lot of information about them because of the permafrost in the Arctic preserved their bodies and left them in almost perfect condition. But what if I told you that these giant creatures might still be roaming the earth? There are a lot of people who have claimed that they saw a woolly mammoth in the modern times. In the late 1940s, frozen mammoths were discovered with fresh meat still in their mouths, and every once in a while there are stories all over the internet of people claiming that they've seen an elephant creature with thick fur. Take a look at this video I have for you guys. Okay, so a man filmed what appears to be a woolly mammoth in Siberia. So what do you guys think? Did a woolly mammoth go extinct 4,000 years ago, or could they still be alive today? The Beiji dolphin comes onto our list at number 3. The Beiji dolphin, or the Chinese river dolphin, is the first dolphin to be declared extinct in modern times. This is just incredibly sad. It is the first large mammal species in 50 years to have gone extinct, and it was solely due to mankind. This animal was declared extinct in December 2006 due to harmful fishing practices such as the use of gill nets, rolling hooks, or electrical stunning. There were efforts put in place to save this species, but none of them apparently worked. But even though they are thought to be extinct, a Beiji was spotted in 2007 by a team of researchers. Unfortunately, there was only that one sighting since the extinction, but it's still possible that these dolphins might still be alive today. Stepping into this list at number 2, we have the mysterious Bigfoot, otherwise known as the Gigantopithecus. Their fossils indicate that they were the largest known primates that ever lived. They stood at a height of 3 meters or about 9.8 feet, and they weighed as much as 540 to 600 kilograms, which is about 1,320 pounds. I mean, damn. Now, these are one creatures I don't know if I want to be alive today because they're pretty terrifying. However, scientists almost knows nothing about this mysterious ape. The first piece of evidence that this ape existed, it was discovered by a German paleontologist who found a large molar. Okay, so get this, it was dubbed as a dragon tooth. For years, this was the only trace of this ape, but since then, researchers have found dozens of teeth and a few partial jaws of the Gigantopithecus. It is believed that this giant creature went extinct because the forest shrank and they weren't able to find enough food to survive and reproduce. But some people believe that the Gigantopithecus survived and evolved into Bigfoot. The two creatures look very similar, and there have been many people reporting that they have seen this mysterious creature. Okay, so topping this list, in at number 1, we have the mighty megalodon. This species of shark was the largest to have ever lived. Paleontologists believe that the megalodon megalodon was capable of growing up to at least 52 feet, which is 3 times as long as the longest great white shark ever. No one knows for sure what the megalodon looked like because all that remains from the prehistoric monster are some teeth and a few vertebrae, but paleontologists are able to make a very educated guess. Originally, the megalodon was believed to be wiped out by global warming. However, there have been many sightings all over the world by fishermen and sailors who have claimed to see this large shark. That couldn't be the great white shark because it was way too big. There was also a fossil of the megalodon tooth found deep in the ocean, which means that they still might be living in the deep sea and occasionally they come up to the surface. I mean, after all, there's still 95% of the world's ocean that still hasn't been explored, which is insane to me. All I know for sure is that I would never want to have an encounter with these beasts. Imagine surfing and then bam, the megalodon is right there behind you. Yeah, your lunch.
And at number 5 now, we have woolly mammoths. Everyone has heard of the woolly mammoth, a long extinct animal that some scientists have expressed real interest in trying to bring back through genetic engineering. Mammoths were these massive, hairy relatives of modern elephants. They lived during the last ice age, thousands of years ago, stomping around in places like Europe, Asia, and North America. They adapted to cold climates, with their long, shaggy hair protecting them from the freezing temperatures. Scientists haven't only dug up mammoth bones, but relatively well-preserved carcasses in the frozen tundra of Siberia. The plan is to take the mammoth DNA and insert it into the cells of modern elephants, their closest living relatives. Question is, why do this? And I guess that's the question for everything on this list. Well, some scientists think that bringing back mammoths might help combat climate change, actually. Mammoths stomped around munching on plants, preventing forests from taking over grasslands. So the thought is, if we reintroduce mammoths, they might help keep the Arctic tundra in check, slowing down the thawing of permafrost and basically curbing global warming. Number 4, the Pyrenean ibex. This was a subspecies of the Iberian ibex, inhabiting the mountainous regions of the Pyrenees between Spain and France. In 1999, the last known Pyrenean ibex female named Celia was tagged and collared. A tissue sample was taken from her for future cloning experiments, but in 2000, Celia herself was found dead, crushed by a fallen tree. In 2003, scientists attempted to bring back the Pyrenean ibex from extinction using cloning technology. This involved transferring the nucleus of Celia's skin cell into the egg cell of a domestic goat. The modified egg was then implanted into the uterus of a surrogate mother goat. Multiple goats were impregnated, but only one pregnancy came to term. The clone was successfully born, making it like history as the first cloned extinct animal, but had a number of health issues. It suffered from a lung defect and survived for just 7 minutes after birth. Obviously, didn't go how they wanted it to, but this was still a big scientific leap. The experiment's outcomes led to extensive discussions in the scientific community on the ethics, really, and practicality of cloning endangered or extinct species. Next up on the list are passenger pigeons. These were once one of the most abundant bird species in North America, but after all the hunting and habitat loss, the species became extinct by the early 20th century. There are currently efforts to revive the passenger pigeon, though, led by the non-profit organization Revive and Restore. Revive and Restore are studying the DNA of the passenger pigeon and its closest living relative, the band-tailed pigeon, by identifying specific mutations in the DNA that cause the differences between the two species. Their aim is to basically modify the DNA of the band-tailed pigeon to have traits more similar to the passenger pigeon. The resultant hybrid wouldn't be an exact copy of the original passenger pigeon, but it would be virtually indistinguishable in terms of its appearance and its behavior. Captive breeding of these hybrid pigeons is actually planned to commence in 2024, and then larger numbers of the hybrids are scheduled to be released into the wild by 2030. If this turns out to be successful, it'd be pretty groundbreaking in the realm of de-extinction efforts. We could see the same thing happening with other extinct or endangered animals, possibly ones on this very list. And at number 2, we have the dodo, the laughingstock of the natural pecking order. Like, no animal in existence, I don't think, gets dogged on as much as this poor animal, and they're not even around to defend themselves anymore, at least for now. The dodo was a large flightless bird, stood about 3 feet tall, had a plump body and a hooked beak. Because of its inability to fly and its lack of natural predators on the island, the dodo evolved without strong defenses. And dodos were discovered by Portuguese sailors in the late 16th century. Humans, along with the introduction of animals like pigs, rats, monkeys, led to the end of the dodo. The last confirmed sighting of one was in 1662. By the end of the 17th century, they were extinct. Extracting usable... Now, dodo DNA samples are scarce and heavily degraded. Extracting usable genetic material is a bit difficult. The potential is there, though. Maybe one day this silly bird will make a comeback. But finally, at number 1, we have Neanderthals. Yeah. That's right. How wild would this be? Having other species of human existing alongside us, a species where we were thought to have killed off, brought back to, like, I don't know, right the wrong, I guess. I think this would be a complete disaster. We can't even get along with each other, let alone an entirely separate species of human. The idea of Neanderthals being brought back is very far-fetched in terms of us having any real desire to do it. It would, however, be entirely possible. Neanderthal DNA exists in modern-day human beings, particularly Europeans, because Neanderthals and modern humans coexisted in what is now Europe. Not just warring with each other, but also interbreeding from time to time. So attempting to bring Neanderthals back would mean human beings would be the surrogates, which would also be very strange.
In our number 10 spot, we have the elephant bird. The elephant bird became extinct approximately 1000 to 1200 CE, and it is most likely due to human activity due to hunting, climate and vegetation change, and habitat loss due to deforestation. These birds are from the ratite family, Epornithidae, and they were enormous flightless birds. They used to live in Madagascar. They stood about 9.8 feet tall and weighed approximately 1,600 pounds. Their closest living relative is the kiwi bird. It is said that they most likely ate low-hanging fruit, even though they look like they could gobble you up in one go. I would have personally thought them to be carnivores, but thankfully not. I would be fine if scientists brought them back. Any herbivore, you know, is fine, but if they pulled a Jurassic Park on us and brought back the carnivores, then I would not be okay. In our number 9 spot, we have the Pyrenean ibex. The Pyrenean ibex was basically a wild goat. When people say that they love goats, I'm always a little perplexed. Why? Just why? Watch my dad will for sure watch this episode and will say something like, "Hey, I love goats," and yes, he does indeed. I don't know why. He's always sending me goat videos when he goes to his friend's farm. I shall never understand. Anyways, this wild goat was 5 feet long and apparently 30 inches tall. It was found in southwestern Europe, and the species died out in 2003, which is really not that long ago. I was 13. Shoot, I need to stop giving away my age. I mean, I was just born. Anyways, the last goat was born and died 7 minutes after its birth due to a lung defect. Hunting, inbreeding, and other factors basically caused this goat's extinction over time. Honestly, it's a bit of a shame that this goat no longer exists because it looks rather majestic, much more classier than regular goats. In our number 8 spot, we have the Chinese river dolphin. It breaks my heart to think that a species of the dolphin might be extinct, but sadly it is. The Chinese river dolphin, known as the baji, sadly went extinct in 2002. It primarily lived in freshwater rivers, primarily in the Yangtze River. The main reason for its extinction is due to the impact of humans. It was directly targeted by meat lovers, but also due to an increasing amount of construction projects on the river. The dolphin, who relies primarily on its sonar capabilities, found it hard to navigate for food because of the construction noise. Pollution in the waters also didn't help either, as well as overfishing. The males were about 7.5 feet long, while the females could be about 8.2 feet. I have a soft spot for dolphins, so honestly I really hope scientists scientists are able to bring this one back. In our number 7 spot we have the dodo bird. The dodo bird is a bird that I would probably be terrified of if I was in a room alone with it, as it's just kinda scary looking. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of birds in general, so maybe my biases. The dodo bird lived on the island of Mauritius. The bird was about 3.3 feet tall when alive. They went extinct in the 17th century, so quite a long time ago now. What did they eat? Well, their diet primarily consisted of eating from a specific tree that was, called the dodo tree, but the scientific name for the tree is called tambalacoke tree. They also ate nuts, fruits, roots, and small insects. So really I would have nothing to be afraid of. I bet it would totally mess me up though, cause they were, big birds. My scrawny self would just hide. In our number 6 spot we have the Tasmanian tiger. The Tasmanian tiger, despite its name, isn't actually a tiger, but was named this due to its tiger-like characteristics. The tiger only recently went extinct in the 20th century in 1936. The species slowly began to decrease about 2,000 years ago due to pressure from indigenous human settlers. They lived primarily in Australia and New Guinea. They were typically 39 inches to 51 inches long and 24 inches high. They have a close living relative, and that's the Tasmanian devil and the numbat. Not gonna lie, I had no idea the Tasmanian devil was a real animal. I totally thought it was just a lovable cartoon character, so I'm shook. Anyone else? Apparently there is hope for the Tasmanian tiger, as with recovering a little DNA, it may be possible to de-extinct the species. I hope scientists are able to.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Epicyon. That name roughly translates to more than dog, and you're about to see exactly why. It lived in North America about 15 million years ago, where it really was the top dog. They grew to about 5 feet in length and weighed up to 300 pounds. They had a massive head as well, even bigger than mine, and very powerful jaws. This resulted in their skull looking more like a lion's than any canine species. This big dog needed to be big because it shared its territory with ancient big cats and bears. Epicyon would have regularly clashed with them for food and territory. Now scientists think its main prey would have been the Apicamelus, a type of camel that lived in North America around that time. That's right, if you're from North America, there could have been giant dogs chasing camels on the exact same spot where you're now standing. There's a thought. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Pelagornis sandersi. You could also call this one the seagull from hell. They lived around 25 million years ago. Their wingspan is estimated to be between 20 and 24 feet. That is the largest wingspan on a flying bird ever discovered. That wingspan is about the size of an orca whale. It's also twice the wingspan of the modern day wandering albatross. Its proportions are so insane that scientists are actually surprised that it could even fly at all. It could have weighed up to 88 pounds, considered too heavy to fly. Right now the best theory is that it could fly because of its relatively small body and long wings, and also that it spent most of its time over the ocean. In fact, they thought it could only take off by hopping over the edge of a cliff. Coming at number 8 now, we have the Acrophysta. This is an extinct group of sperm whales that lived between 13 and 5 million years ago. Modern day sperm whales are known for their very large teeth, but they had nothing on the Acrophysta. Unlike modern day sperm whales, they had huge deeply rooted teeth in both their upper and lower jaws. Modern day sperm whales only have that in their lower jaw. It had a short and pointed snout. This, coupled with the robust curved front teeth, suggests that Acrophysta hunted very large prey, using its back teeth for shearing the meat apart. They had big heads, were very strong, and had upwards curved Y-shaped jaws. They were fairly big creatures, thought to have reached up to 14 feet in size, not as big as modern day orcas, about the size of giant dolphins. Strangely enough, a lot of scientific debate that revolves around this creature is about whether or not it had a top lip. I guess it's just going to be one of those big unanswered life questions. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Anomalocaris. This creature is also known as the abnormal shrimp, which I love. It really is a perfect description. It's thought to be one of the first predators on Earth. That's quite a title to have. It had a large head and a single pair of large compound eyes on stalks that comprised of around 16,000 different lenses. Its mouth was made up of 32 overlapping plates, 4 large and 28 small, that resembled a sort of pineapple ring, with the center replaced by a series of serrated prongs. Looking at models of them today, they resemble small shrimps, except they were a lot bigger than that. They could be over 3.3 feet long and had 2 arms over 7 inches long that protruded from their mouth with barb-like spikes coming out. They ate hard sea creatures for breakfast, lunch and dinner. This is presumed because of the robust spines of their appendages. Basically, you wouldn't want one of these things getting their mouth around your leg and say bye to your leg. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Adestus. This shark lived from 400 to 300 million years ago. If you've watched one of our previous videos in this series, you may think it looks a little bit like the Helicoprion, the one with the big sort of circular saw teeth. Well, they actually belong to the same family, but Adestus had more of an arc of teeth on both the roof and floor of its mouth. After its discovery, scientists were baffled as to how it used this teeth formation to catch and eat its prey. For a while, it was thought that it used its teeth like scissors, bringing the top and bottom together to sort of crush and mash its prey into digestible chunks. Now though, the theory has changed. New research by Wayne M. Itano of the University of Colorado suggests that Adestus used its outwardly projecting teeth in a vertical thrashing manner. It literally thrashed its prey to death. Hey, I mean, whatever works. With quick and strong up and down movements, the shark would have slashed and cut up its prey in seconds before ingesting it whole. I think we've all eaten like that once or twice in our life, maybe when we're really hungry, but that is what Adestus did every day.
In our number 5 spot, we have the woolly mammoth. If the woolly mammoth was brought back to life and found just wandering around the world, I don't know how I would feel. Not gonna lie. I mean, first thought is to be terrified, but maybe that's dramatic because it's not like it would try to eat me because they are herbivores. Hashtag drama queen. Apparently the woolly mammoth would be about 10 feet to 12 feet high with a weight of up to 6 tons. They are the relative of African elephants and they went extinct about 4,000 years ago in East Asia. Fun fact about the woolly mammoth, the rings on the tusk tells you how old it is, just like the rings on a tree do. Apparently there is a line for every year. In our number 4 spot we have the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, if scientists brought back this species, this would be insane. But do we really need another predatory species that want humans to die? We already have to deal with, lions, tigers, and the reptiles in our government, so I think I speak for all of us when I say this isn't necessary. But would be cool to witness. The saber-toothed tiger has been a wonder to many for so long. They are famously known for their long, curved canine teeth. It could weigh anywhere between 485 pounds to 961 pounds. It was approximately 39 inches tall. Its closest relative is the tiger, of course. They originated in North and South America about 10,000 years ago, so it would be extraordinary if scientists found a way to bring them out of extinction. In our number 3 spot we have the Glyptodont. The Glyptodont is a larger subfamily of the armadillo. They were around from approximately 34 million years ago in South America, and when the continents became connected, they spread to North America. They were about 12 feet long and 1.5 feet high. They had fluted teeth and they were covered in a thick bony carapace. They went extinct approximately 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. It's so interesting how much bigger animals were thousands of years ago, and now all of these big animals have much smaller subfamilies that are alive today. I mean, obviously that's better for us humans, as the less threats we have physically, the better, but still interesting to note. In our number 2 spot we have the quagga. Okay, so you're probably thinking, Melissa, is this not just a zebra? Yeah, it is a species of a zebra, but it's still different and it's extinct, and scientists are thinking of bringing it back. The quagga went extinct in the 19th century, and one of the last pictures that we have of the quagga alive is from 1870 in a London zoo. It's a subspecies of zebra from South Africa. It's about 8 feet 5 inches long and 4 feet 5 inches tall. It has a sandy brown coat with a white tail and stripes from the top to the middle part of its body. They were herbivores and would typically live 20 to 40 years. They look, pretty majestic to me. I hope this is a species that scientists are able to bring back. In our number 1 spot we have the ground sloth. The ground sloth is from South Africa and went extinct approximately 11,000 years ago, and some of the species of ground sloths have been extinct longer. The megatherium, for example, has been extinct for 12,000 years, and this one in particular looks more like a bear than a sloth. It was massive and could be up to 20 feet tall, weighing about 6,600 pounds. Imagine these sloths were just roaming the world today. There are already enough scary bears in the world. I feel like, we're good without this one. But still, this would be an unbelievable breakthrough if we could bring back these creatures. Although I am sure that they wouldn't be as friendly as Sid from Ice Age. That short, cute little guy wouldn't hurt a fly. His lisp is literally the cutest thing in the world. But anyways, would be cool if they came back.
Coming at number 5 now, we have the Argavantes. These birds were bloody huge, probably second only in wingspan to the Pelagornis that we talked about at number 9. For me though, these things were even scarier. Imagine vultures that stood taller than adult humans. Yeah, now you're starting to get it. They lived between 9 and 6.8 million years ago and had territories of up to 200 square miles. They would fly these incredible distances looking for food. Now, because of its huge size, it's thought that this bird may have actually been unsuited to hunting its own prey and instead lived as a scavenger, taking kills from other carnivores. Just like our giant seagull friends from earlier in the video, scientists have been trying to figure out how this bird was able to fly, as it seems to break the known laws of bird flight, physically speaking. Of course, I'm not saying there are actual laws about birds flying. Skeletal evidence suggests that its breast muscles were not powerful enough for wing flapping for extended periods of time, and that it may have relied on mountain slopes or headwinds to even take off. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Atacopus. This is an extinct species of arachnids that lived around 390 million years ago. All of you arachnophobes may be glad that it's extinct when you hear about it. It resembled modern day spiders except for the fact that it had a tail. I mean, that's weird enough on a spider, but wait for it, the tail was basically a scorpion tail. That's right, if you've ever wondered how to make a big spider even scarier to some people, put a massive scorpion tail on the back of it. For a number of years after its discovery, scientists thought that Atacopus was the ancient ancestor of modern spiders. Then they rethought their position. There was an important difference between the two. Modern spiders produce silk to spin webs. Atacopus is thought to have also produced silk, but it used that silk to wrap eggs, lay drag lines, or construct burrow walls. It's this key difference that has now led scientists to believe that Atacopus is probably related to the ancestor of modern spiders, but is not actually a spider itself. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Purosaurus. I need to make an apology here at this point in the video. In a previous video, I described a creature known as the Sarcosuchus as the giant crocodile. I have since learned that there was more than one giant crocodile that used to exist. There were actually quite a few. The Purosaurus was one of them. It's the second largest giant crocodile to ever waddle the earth. It lived across South America about 8 million years ago. This monstrous beast had a very big, stout, robust head full of large shaped teeth that could snag prey and never let them go. The region it lived in is now made up of the Amazon rainforest, but back then it looked very different as it was actually part of a vast inland sea. That sea was full of giant crocodiles, whales, huge rodents and massive turtles. Despite the size of the prey and the competition there, Purosaurus was the top predator, and when you see the size of the reconstructions they've made, you can see just why. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Camarasaurus. This is thought to be the giant ancestor of the giant squid, so it was pretty giant. It first appeared in the fossil records during the middle of the Ordovician era, around 470 million years ago. It had a huge cone-like shell to protect itself. Of course, as you might expect for an ancestor of this squid, it had big old tentacles for catching its prey. Thought to be between 20 and 30 feet, it was a formidable predator. It's thought they were stalkers, ambushing their prey that moved across the sea floor. You may think it would be difficult to be sneaky with a 20-foot cone on your back, but that was also the reason it had to ambush, as the cone would have made chasing prey too difficult. Some scientists actually think that for the biggest of these creatures, they never even moved. They just sat in the dark at the bottom of the ocean waiting for their next meal to pass by. And finally, number 1 now, we have Megalanis. This creature is essentially the great granddaddy of the Komodo dragon, an impressive sized modern creature, but it had nothing on this ancestor. They weighed over 1,300 pounds. That's more than 10 times the weight of an average human being. They also grew to almost 18 feet long. The Megalanus almost made it to the modern era as well, dying out just 50,000 years ago. If you look at when some of the other creatures on this list went extinct, 50,000 years ago is basically yesterday. They lived and died out in Australia, which means the earliest Aboriginal people may have lived alongside them. With enough coordination, they may have been able to take them down, but it would have been risky. One bite from this creature would be enough to cripple even the most experienced early human hunter. When you hear about ancient creatures like this, it's no wonder that ancient cultures so often mention dragons existing. They kind of really did.
Starting off this countdown, we have the California condor. The California condor is the largest vulture and land bird in North America. From tip to tip, its wings stretch about 10 feet. It's got a big wingspan. They also can fly as high as 15,000 feet in the air. Now these vultures used to live all throughout the southwestern US into northwestern Mexico, but during the 20th century their population started to decline due to pesticides, poaching, and loss of habitat. By 1987 there were so few left that scientists declared them extinct. During that time there were only about 27 or less in the wild. But don't worry, the US government actually helped save these animals. They created a captive breeding program and set it up in a number of zoos across the country. This program is said to be one of the most expensive conservation projects in US history. It cost about $35 million and $2 million per year to keep it up. And slowly but surely they helped increase the amount of condors. As of 2019, their population is at 118. Some of the birds have even been reintroduced into the wild. They are still at risk, but all the birds are tagged and the US are keeping a close eye on them to make sure they never get near extinction ever again. In our ninth spot today we have the Somali elephant shrew. Now don't be fooled, this isn't an elephant, but it does have a long pointed snout like an elephant. It's as small as a mouse and kinda looks like one too, but they aren't actually a shrew. That rhymed. In fact, they are related to aardvarks, elephants, and manatees. You heard me correctly. These tiny little creatures are related to elephants and manatees. How? I don't understand nature. Anyways, the last recorded sighting of this creature was in the 1970s. After that, scientists declared the species extinct. That was until August of 2020. A team of researchers were out doing studies when they came across these tiny little creatures. From there, they decided to try and see how many elephant shrews were left in the wild. So they set up more than 1,000 traps with a tasty treat of peanut butter, oatmeal, and yeast inside. In total, they came across 12 elephant shrews of the same species. Now thousands of these little guys are back and are no longer threatened or in danger. Moving on to number 8, we have the Bermuda petrel. This is the second rarest seabird on the planet. In fact, it was last seen on Nonsuch Island in 1620. They literally thought it was extinct for over 300 years. They went extinct because their habitat was destroyed by sea erosion and hurricanes. But then in the 1950s they were like, surprise! No, we're here to stay, we're just playing. So in the 1950s their nest was spotted east of Bermuda with a few birds nearby. In 1951, 36 of these birds were rediscovered, and as of 2021 their population is increasing. The government created new nesting sites for these seabirds, and as of spring 2020 there are a total of 134 breeding pairs. We went from 18 to 134. Hell yeah. But according to conservation officer Jeremy Madrios, he said, and I quote, "It's an ongoing recovery, an example for threatened species around the world in an era when encroachment on and destruction of habitats is putting more species at risk than ever before." Well spoken. In our 7th spot today we have the horned marsupial frogs. These little guys are so freaking cute. Like, just look at them. They have like weird pointy eyeball horns. But its eye horns aren't the only thing that makes this frog pretty weird. Its eggs develop in a pouch on the female's back, and when they hatch, you got fully formed frogs instead of tadpoles. That's pretty unusual for frogs. Anyways, these frogs live in the tropical rainforest in Ecuador, but due to habitat loss from oil palm crops, timber, and mining, the frogs went extinct around 2005. They were declared extinct for 13 years until 2018 when they made a comeback. Since extinction, they now have a population of 350 with 18 new species. Moving on to number 6, we have the takahe. The takahe are flightless birds that are native to New Zealand. They honestly kind of look like peacocks without the big colorful feathers. It's because they have the same bluey greeny colorway. In the 1890s, their population began to decline due to hunting, competition for food, predators, and habitat loss. By 1898, they were declared extinct. But then, 50 years later, a small group of them were discovered high in the Murchison Mountains. As of 2019, the population is 418. It is said to be growing at a rate of 10% per year. Slowly but surely. In fact, the rediscovery of this bird inspired New Zealand's longest running endangered species program. It's been in the works for more than 70 years now, with plans to make sure that this animal or any other animal never becomes extinct again, as well as they help save endangered species.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Megalodon. Megalodon was the biggest shark that ever lived. They went extinct about 2.6 million years ago. Scientists think they could have grown to an insane 60 feet in length. That's about 3 times as long as the largest great white shark ever found. Here's how big they are. Before modern science identified them as a prehistoric species of shark, people used to think the megalodon teeth they'd found were actually dragon tongues. Others said they belonged to giant serpents, or even that they were rocks that had fallen from the moon. Just think how big and scary you'd have to be for people to think that your teeth belonged to dragons or outer space. It used to feed on prehistoric whales, and unlike modern sharks, which go for the soft underbelly of their prey, Megalodon just went for the whole thing. They would bite down on the whale's chest with some 41,000 pounds of force, the strongest ever recorded, and simply crushed the whale's chest cavity and organs. They didn't stand a chance, and unless you're an even bigger whale watching this video, you probably wouldn't either. Next up at number 9 now, we have Phobiromis pattersoni. This was a huge rat. Some scientists have even called it Ratzilla. Technically it wasn't a rat, but if you're scared of them, I bet you'd be scared of this. They reached a whopping 9.8 feet long. Their tails alone could reach 4.9 feet. They had the weight to go with it too, often reaching over 1,500 pounds. Like most rodents, they had big incisor teeth. In the case of Ratzilla though, their incisor teeth were about a foot long. It's a good job they were herbivores and used those teeth for plant life. However, I don't think that knowledge would do much to calm people if they were suddenly seen running around the streets at night. Coming at number 8 now, we have the titanoboa. Everyone with a phobia of snakes, please look away now. This was a massive snake, thought to actually be the largest that's ever lived. Its name literally means titanic boa. It lived around 60 million years ago. The largest individuals reached up to 42 feet in length and weighed over 2,500 pounds. That's well over a ton for a snake. It could grow this big because the Earth's climate was a lot warmer back then. As the climate began to cool over the next few million years, only smaller snakes could survive, and snakes like the titanoboa began to disappear. Probably a good thing for us humans, because we would not want to be running around worrying about snakes that weigh as much as your average rhino. No thanks. Next up at number 7 now, we have Dunkleosteus. This is a fish that lived about 370 million years ago during the late Devonian period. These things were big, growing up to 30 feet in length and weighing over a ton. What's most scary about them is their bite. This fish could bite down on its prey with a force of some 6,000 newtons. That might not mean anything to you until I say that's almost about 4 times the bite strength of a polar bear. This fish could bite your arm clean off you, including the bone. Its jaws were so efficient they could hinge them open and snap them shut in a matter of milliseconds. If we were to bring this species back to life, people might worry about them more than sharks. At number 6 now, we have the megapiranha. Unlike a lot of scientific names on this list, the megapiranha has a kind of obvious one. It was a giant piranha fish that lived about 10 million years ago. They grew to around 3 feet long, and unlike modern piranhas, they had not 1 but 2 separate rows of teeth. Scientists aren't even sure how hard they could bite, but some estimates go as high as 4,749 newtons. If that's the case, they would bite more than twice as hard as a hippo. Neither of those sounds fun, but one definitely sounds worse.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the tarsier. These are one of the cutest animals to ever exist. Just look at it. It looks like a cute little weird monkey, squirrel, alien thing. Like, I want one as a pet. Anyways, this interesting creature is considered a nocturnal primate, but scientists still don't know much about it. One of the reasons being is that scientists thought that they went extinct in the 1920s. But in May of 2000, while checking a rat trap that they had set up in a forest, scientists discovered that they had actually accidentally caught a tarsier. Sadly though, this little dude was dead. But still, they were like, oh shoot, these creatures are back! Then in 2008, researchers found a family of them in Lore Lindu National Park. Nowadays, it's believed that there are only 5,000 to 10,000 of these animals in the whole world. And that number is sadly falling again instead of rising. It's because these little creatures don't live too long in captivity. In fact, when they are in distress, they apparently try and take their own lives. So that's a reason why it's hard to look after these little guys and keep them off of the endangered list. In our fourth spot today, we have the golden lion tamarin, but I like to call it the golden majestic monkey. Like, look at this thing! Look at its luscious locks. It's got nicer hair than me. Anyways, this orange primate is located in Brazil's Atlantic forest. But sadly, with its habitat being destroyed, the population is at great risk. In the early 1970s, so few of them were alive in the wild that they were declared extinct. But with the help from the World Wildlife Federation, public charities, and 150 zoos, Brazil's government has been able to help these monkeys. There's now a healthy population of them being looked after by zoos all over the world. Plus, they have already breeded and reintroduced around 1,700 of these majestic guys back into the wild. It's sad, but the main threat these guys face is urbanization of the area. They're losing space to call home, and that's what's putting them at risk the most. Moving on, number 3, we have Catagonus wagneri. Now, these animals are weird because just look at them. They look like gray hairy pigs or warthogs, but without the little horns. Either way, I still find them cute. Back in the day, this creature was discovered from early fossil records. Then in 1974, a biology professor from University of Connecticut was on a National Geographic research expedition when he rediscovered these creatures. And they are no longer considered endangered or extinct. A huge population of them live in a 2,400 acre area in Gran Chaco. They hide out in the bushy, thorny areas so that they are safe from jaguars and pumas and local hunters. Another huge population resides in the Tagua Sanctuary at the CCCI Conservation Center. In our second spot today, we have the Tasmanian Devil. Not the dude from Looney Tunes, don't worry, he's still being animated and he as well. Anyways, the Tasmanian Devil used to be found all over the place, but now they are only found on the island state of Tasmania. Around 3,000 years ago, these creatures went extinct because of predation. They were being hunted by the dingo. And then they were hit by the devil facial tumor disease, which is a contagious form of cancer. This spread like wildfire and killed 90% of the population. As a result, they were declared extinct. But over the years, the creatures were reintroduced to wildlife sanctuaries and have been introduced in New South Wales in Australia. This has helped save the population. Plus, the population is thriving in Tasmania, as there are no dingoes there to hurt them. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the coelacanth. The coelacanth, which is spelled nothing like it's pronounced, I thought it would be like coelacanth, but no, I guess not. Anyways, these dudes have the most famous comeback story of all time. These fish were said to have been around when the dinosaurs were alive. That's right, that's how old these dudes are. In the 19th century, that's when scientists discovered a fossil of this fish. The fossils were said to be over 410 million years old. It's said that they went extinct around 66 million years ago. That was until 1938, when they were rediscovered off the coast of South Africa. That has to be the greatest comeback of all time. They still are critically endangered, but the fact that they managed to survive millions of years is absolutely insane.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have Gigantopithecus. In many ways, this creature is what we'd call Bigfoot. It lived between 9 million to 100,000 years ago in Asia and was the largest ape on Earth. They stood about 10 feet tall and their diets were mostly vegetarian. When I say stand, I mean stand in the way gorillas and chimpanzees do. It's thought they walked on all fours. However, a small number of scientists do think they walked walked on 2 legs like humans. Either way, with a 12-foot arm span, you'd be best to stay clear of this giant and unpredictable ape. Next up at number 4 now, we have Helicoprion. This was a shark-like creature that lived some 290 million years ago during the early Permian era. We've seen some very weird creatures on the list so far, but this might just beat them all. The Helicoprion is famous for his spirally arranged clusters of teeth known as tooth walls. This bizarre set of teeth would have reached about 24 inches in length. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the short-faced bear. The scientific name for these is the Arctodus. They first appeared in the fossil records 1.8 million years ago and seem to survive all the way up until just 11,000 years ago. So a pretty close call for us modern humans. One specimen found weighed 2,110 pounds. They stood up to 12 feet tall on their hind legs, about twice the height of the average human male. Their vertical arm reach extended up to a further 14 feet. I could keep giving you guys stats on just how monstrous these bears were. Between those ones and the pictures you're seeing now, I think you get the idea. They were 50% larger than the biggest polar bears in recorded history. Scientists estimate they needed a whopping 35 pounds of meat a day just to survive. If we brought them back from extinction, I'm sure they wouldn't mind human meat being a part of that. Next up at number 2 now, we have the Meganeura. Dragonflies are nice, right? They're pretty cool looking creatures you find fluttering around ponds and rivers. They're a little bit freaky if they land on you, but you know, hey, at least they're small. Not Meganeura though. This massive dragonfly-like creature lived about 300 million years ago during a Carboniferous period. Its wingspan could reach up to 30 inches, making this thing about the size of a 6-month-old baby. Don't ask me why I'm using a baby as a reference, it's just the best comparison I could find. They reach this size because insects need more oxygen the bigger they are. Back then, the oxygen levels in the atmosphere were higher than the current 20% we have today. This allowed insects, including Meganeura, to grow insanely big. You wouldn't need your hand to bat this thing away, more like a baseball bat. And finally at number 1 now, we have Deinosuchus. This is an extinct relation of the modern alligator that lived some 80 to 73 million years ago. That means it was alive at the same time as T-Rex. In fact, it's thought these two actually fought it out back then. They are thought to have been up to 33 feet in length and have weighed as much as 5 tons. It looks like the T-Rex might not have been much of a match for this oversized alligator. There have actually been T-Rex fossils found with massive Deinosuchus bites found in them. Perhaps they were just defending their territories from T-Rexes, or perhaps they saw them as food. Either way, they definitely were not scared of T-Rexes, and so they definitely wouldn't be scared of us. I get the feeling if we brought them back from extinction, that might be where we're heading next. I'm just kidding, of course. Humans would probably be fine. This whole video was just a fun thought experiment, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now it's time to go over some of your comments. Today we're looking at ones from Top 10 Scary Rooms That Should Have Stayed Secret Part 2. The first comment comes from Investing Hustler, who says, I would actually love to visit these places. Really? Really? Did you watch the video? Some of those places sounded horrific. The first one was literally just a dingy dark room with a dead cat and demonic message written on the wall. Why would you ever want to visit a place like that? Unless you're one of the ones who leaves those messages behind. Banter in the Fast Lane said, an hour and not a single dislike yet. Never seen that on YouTube before. Do not say that. As soon as you say that, someone will see it and they will then dislike the video. Not even because they dislike it themselves, but just because they want to be special. They want to be that one person who will dislike the video. So next time you see that, just keep quiet. Maybe smile at the screen and nod. Nothing more though. Wafflebot says, lol, Barry Benson got a new job as a host. I had to look up who Barry Benson is. It's the main character from the Bee movie. How do I look like a bee? He has brown hair, which I don't, and blue eyes when I have green eyes. So where's the resemblance? Am I bright yellow with wings? And I've just realized that people are saying that because in that video I was wearing my stripy yellow shirt. So I must have looked a bit like a bumblebee. Well, that's a relief. I was worried I was turning yellow and growing wings. Alright, that's the end of the video guys. If you want us to respond to your comments in the next video, then make sure you leave an interesting comment or question in the comment section on this video and we will do our best to read them out. Thanks for watching as always guys. My name is Danny Burke and I will see you all in the next video.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about urban legends and the research we conducted personally on it. We found out something interesting that will be sure to scare you guys. Click the video now to find out more. See you in the next video.